Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Do people actually prepare talking points to win family arguments at the Thanksgiving table?
Thanksgiving table. I don't know what yours was like as a kid. Mine was always interesting. You know, as you grow up as a kid, you listen a lot and you're kind of intimidated. You're not sure where you fit. And I don't know if you ever remember the first time you ever think it's your turn to pipe up and say something, and then you wonder when you're going to get smacked. Or, it's just, how do you watch all the relatives talk about reality? So it's a big thing. I mean, a lot of times Thanksgiving, you get all the people in one room and it ends up in a big argument. So I found this article. I sent it over to you because I thought you'd get a hoot out of it. Here are the facts to prepare you for Thanksgiving arguments.
Can I just chime in? All right. So first of all, I have three different distinct views of Thanksgiving. One is what you're describing, when I was very young and grandparents were allowed, and it was very observatory. The meal itself, I mean, everything is so much bigger when you're little, right?
Yeah.
The room
sure
is bigger.
Yeah.
Parents are big. Your parents they're not flawed human beings. They're bigger than life.
Yeah.
And yet you're experiencing their flaws. So when I was very young, I was very observatory. When I was a little bit older, from, teenage years through young adulthood, then it was very dysfunctional. So you just held your breath because you never knew what was coming. Those are not pleasant memories. And then there's the Thanksgiving in the family I've made, which is very functional, and none of this can relate to.
Yeah.
I mean, we are literally all around a table, first and foremost, grateful for each other to the point where it's just dripping. I have teenage daughters who start all right, let's go around the table. Everybody talk about what you're grateful for. And then you just sit in awe listening to what your children are saying. And this was a very special one for us. But none of this, I don't even think even my teen dysfunctional years could relate to this Washington Post article. And the notion, here's your armament, go terrorize a Thanksgiving table somewhere. I mean, who lives like this?
You are now equipped as culture warriors to go out on all of these issues and blow up the table.
They think that you're using hyperbole. Can I just read a little?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so the headline is, here are the facts to prepare you for Thanksgiving arguments. As if the goal is to create and win victory over things. I mean, this is so far from thankfulness, right? And then it starts, Thanksgiving can be hard. When loved ones gather, it's natural to reflect upon what's happening. And then their goal is to make sure you're armed with the facts. So we get to abortion. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned in June 2022, voters have supported abortion rights in 6 states, including red Kansas, Kentucky, and Ohio. Give that to your pro-life relatives. But I mean, it does it for every major topic. And I'm like, oh my Lord, what have we become? Are we even capable of focusing on what's important and who's most important in life and celebrating? I'm watching my Maine Coon and this dumpster cat laying together on a couch yesterday, and I'm thinking, what does a nearly $2,000 Maine Coon cat have in common with a rescued dumpster cat? And the answer is everything if you're focused on that.
But I thought we banned cat conversations on 1850 Main Street.
Oh, stop
I mean,
it.
at this table,
Just simple
come
enough.
on.
No, I mean, for me, the first thing is, who's having those kinds of conversations at Thanksgiving?
Exactly. And why?
And let alone somebody trying to arm them.
And this is the Washington Post. So again, so this played into, so I'm going into a conversation, and I had a lovely group of people, and it ended up, how different family groups will get into different parts of the rooms, and then these conversations go on, and some are outside walking around, some are smoking cigars, some are doing this, some are doing other things.
One's asleep with their hands in their belt.
Yeah. Right. The whole football game and the whole thing. So I got segued into a corner, and some really great conversations with some just honest working folk, just decent people. And they had a lot of questions, but and we were talking about so many different things. And the concern about the future of the country was the main dish. And one of the things that came out in the greatest amount of frustration that I heard was the frustration with media. The sense of saying, I feel surrounded by messages that I don't trust. And I don't know who to trust and who not to trust. And it was funny because Michael, when you know what's going on and you're kind of listening to people who are close to figuring it out, you want to kind of just grab them and help them get through the knothole so that their angst can end. Because it's painful to watch people trying to figure it out. And the sort of the sense of, it's almost an adolescent kind of feeling like, I don't know who to trust anymore. And it's painful.
It's interesting because whether we're talking about COVID, whether we're talking about elections and politics, whether we're talking about companies, doctors, commercials, isn't it funny? We always come back to lost trust. It just, I don't know. It knocks us all off balance. It just seems to be the culprit.
And we know things are askew. We know things aren't going right. We know things aren't going in the right direction. And we keep looking for, is there a dial you can turn, or is there something I can change? How do I have to change? Is there someone who's going to rescue us? And you keep looking around, and then it gets into the right. Who do you trust? So we got into a conversation, and I started to ask this group of friends, tell me, who owns this whole media thing? Have you ever stopped to think about that? Now, what amazes me is because you and I have talked about this. We've talked about it on the public square. We've talked about it on 1850. We talk about it on your morning show. You and I have been talking about this for years. And yet it amazes me how few people know the facts. And so I pulled up some old articles that you and I had been talking about over time. And I was looking at them this morning, reminding myself to make sure I got my facts right. What it comes down to is most of American media is owned by about 6 companies. Now, this doesn't include social media. That's the big 3. You know, the Google, the Facebook, the Apple world, and all of that social media control stuff. That's the Twitter and all of that. So there's 3 or 4 companies over there on the social media side. But we're talking now about the stuff that you and I combat every day, whether it's in print or whether it's on television or whether it's on radio. And so you go by and you say, okay, well, who are they? Well, you can start right down the list. Now, what's important to know is that you and I aren't making this up, and this isn't some conspiracy thing. Harvard University did an entire, this study is inches thick to validate. They went out and they did the research. And there are other places where there's charts that summarize it and everything else, but you're basically talking about companies like CBS and all the things that they own. CBS is owned by Summer Redstone. It's worth $4.6 billion. And you're talking about CBS News, CBS Television, Epix, CMT, Flix, Decades, Nickelodeon, Nick Music, Showtime, Viacom. It goes on. And then their whole internet assets. Then you get to Disney, ABC. You're talking about ABC, Disney, ABC Television Group, ABC Family, ABC Studios. You've got ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Lucasfilm, Marvel. Again, the conglomerates, the SEC Sports Network, and they have print assets. You've got companies like Time Warner, who are CNN, and Mad Magazine, one of my still favorites. Print assets as well. And then you get to the big Comcast, the Roberts family. $40.8 million in annual salary went to Brian Roberts, their CEO, and they own NBC.
Yeah, NBC, Hulu, among other things. Yeah.
Golf Channel, they own Universal Studios. They have got Untold Ventures that are out
Weather
there as
Channel?
well. Oh, and by the way, they do have that thing called Comcast and Xfinity. And if you take the listings of all this, we're now talking about hundreds of companies inside this conglomerate. Then you get to Fox News, which people used to think was the safe spot, right? That's where I can turn it on at night and someone's going to help make sense out of the world for me. But then you realize that the Murdoch family, they're not exactly anything near close to being conservative.
No, this is establishment political Republican more than conservative, let alone virtue.
And so you've got Fox and all of their affiliates, Fox Sports, Fox News, Fox Classics, all of that stuff. The Wall Street Journal, they've got their print, Fox Business Channel, all the different print and film and other things that they're all involved in. Okay. Bottom line is, and that we're just stopping it for, we could go on. The American media is a corporate enterprise. That's what people don't realize anymore. And these corporations have these massive assets. So when they get to their news divisions, it's kind of like they're loss leaders now. They're loss leaders. You say, well, in the old days, 40 years ago, media used to be a lot more localized, and there was a whole lot more accountability between the actual viewer and the consumer of the media and the outlet. You go back to the days of Huntley and Brinkley and NBC News, they were basically sending a news program out to affiliates that were locally owned. Now Universal owns the whole boat. Comcast.
You sent me that article from, there was no date on it. Web TV. I went ahead, or WebFX, and I went ahead and I posted it on my social because I just love the way they did, kind of like in a word cloud format, if you'll forgive me. But you can see all the different logos and assets. It kind of looks like your TV guide on your television, all that they own. And then you see the newspapers, and it breaks it down by print. I love how they include video games, internet. They're pretty much controlling everything that we call news, everything in the form of still newspapers, whether it's websites or print, publishing houses. We could even talk about textbooks, social media, so on and so forth. And what you realize is they're controlling the narratives.
Exactly.
They're controlling all the information, just like I have a filter on my refrigerator. No matter what's coming through the pipes, it's all going through that filter before it gets into my cup and my body. And I was struck by reading this, and you realize, and Sony, you realize how little Sony has. They're barely in the top 6. Boy, have they been dwarfed.
Yeah, they're just down to 34.1 billion.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at this and you realize, because you could circle really Disney, Time Warner, and Comcast. Those 3 are almost controlling everything that your eyes see.
Yeah.
And then when you throw in News Corp, Sony, nobody even knows what National Amusements are, but they should. You'll recognize all the logos. But even at best, 6, that's the top 6 that are controlling. And I was struck by, and this is going to sound so like you want to poke me in the eye. But Jesus started with 12 flawed individuals that went and changed the world. Here are 6 that are controlling the consumption of information for the entire world now. And if you don't think they're having an impact or can have an impact, it just blows you away. And the 12 were on foot. You know what I mean? In a very similar reason. These people are everywhere. So, I mean, when I posted it.
Now, hang on, though. Can I stick with that for 1 second?
Sure.
And I just was reading the other night, Jesus told, when he sent his disciples out, he said, don't take any money bag with you. Just go.
And go in 2s.
Yeah, at the bottom of this article, they've got 6 money bags of the 6 biggest companies. Yeah. And when you add up what's in their money bags annually, it's they're worth, the total value, $430 billion. So if you feel like a snowflake in an avalanche, you're not mistaken.
Michael began in talk radio over 30 years ago. David has been working in the field of public policy and media for over 40 years. They've been around and seen a lot. To learn more about Michael and David, visit 1850mainstreet.com.
So when I posted this, because I knew they would go in and they could see all the logos like they're used to seeing in their Comcast packages or their DirecTV packages and so on, I was wondering, any danger here? What do you think? What are the dangers?
Well,
that 6 people can control an entire narrative and steer an entire world, let alone nation. I mean, what that puts you and I up against?
Yeah.
You ever been in a small little Cessna? I was flying. My friend had one and he let me fly. And one particular day we were up against, I think it was like a 70-mile-an-hour headwind. All right. Well, you got to realize the
like
size.
You were going backwards.
Yeah. They're like a Volkswagen Beetle, only with wings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you take off at like 55 miles an hour, which doesn't seem like you're going fast enough to take off at all. And then basically you hit a headwind like that, you're basically just stationary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing I feel like, and this is the journey you and I are on. This is the journey we've been called to, and we're not in the results business, but we got some pretty big headwinds we're fighting.
We do. And this is where you get into the question of how do we encourage one another, first off, to get independent of the silos that these folks are trying to put us in. Like, let's take one, for example. Let's take Fox News. News Corp is not any notable conservative warrior in the marketplace of ideas. News Corp is a corporation that will market to anybody that'll buy. And when you look at Fox News, what Fox News is the silo that the Murdochs have put together, knowing that there's a bunch of conservatives out there that will listen every night or every day because they're desperate for someone to help integrate reality for them by letting them know what's going on from a more conservative, which they think would be a more trusted point of view. And so they market to that niche of people. It doesn't mean that the people that are saying what they're saying on television believe it, or that management is even comfortable with it. It's how they make money. That's the difference. These are not people that are ideologically committed and self-sacrificing. They're doing this for the buck.
And that was the original motivation for Murdoch. And Roger Ailes was the original foot soldier to deliver it in mass quantities. You're one of the only people I know that have been in a room with Roger Ailes, who, I watched documentaries and I was struck by, if this guy had any kind of physical appearance, he would have been the greatest star on television because he was fun, funny, smart. I mean, he was an entertainer, but he was genuinely conservative. I think Tucker Carlson is genuinely conservative. I think deep down, though it doesn't come out all the time, maybe Sean Hannity is, but for the most part, that network's been reshaped completely by the Murdochs. It's not even the same Fox that we thought was even supposed to be a counter.
So I think the first thing that I'm always, again, desperately trying to pull somebody through the knothole on is especially people that you love, is look, not everybody that claims to be a good guy is necessarily so. And most of the people that you identify as bad guys, you probably got right. But the thing to know is that there are 6 monster, huge, gargantuan billion-dollar corporations that are out there trying to make a buck off of influencing us and get our bucks. And so this is a corporate media. There are no people in this for the altruistic reason of wanting to make your life better, my life better, and save America.
Were you ever struck looking at this list? Because we just kind of did it real quick, or maybe I just distracted you and did it real quick with Fox. But think about how far Disney's come from Walt Disney to what it is today. Think about what time because I actually think Ted Turner maybe just had financial. I mean, you could accuse him. If you found one evil thing about Ted Turner, you could say, well, maybe he was rich and wanting to get richer and greed. I really think he thought he was onto something with 24-hour news. Yeah. No, and I think he had genuine motives, and I think they did it very well until they kind of branched off into talk and got away with this. But look,
Walt Disney was a pioneer. There's no question about that.
But Walt compared to Disney today, Time Warner compared to Ted Turner in its birth, Roger Ailes News Corp.
Yeah.
I mean, where will you go with all this?
So I think that's the first thing is if once you understand what you're up against, then you say, oh, okay, now at least I've got a chance to add some light to this. So I'm not getting manipulated. Because in essence, I'm going to be manipulated because the people that are doing this aren't doing it because they love America. They're doing it for the bottom line. That's going to help me out. Now, is everybody in media that way? No, there are actually nonprofit sources. There actually are people on the internet who are doing what they're doing and trying to communicate because they have a cause. Doesn't mean their cause is right, but there are people who are altruistically motivated, and whether that's good or bad, there are people that are out there.
But they're like a needle in a haystack to find, right?
Now, and for full disclosure, again, this podcast is heard across multiple avenues of distribution, primarily through iHeart. iHeart's a corporation that's got a headquarters and an office, and they're in it to make the money as well. Everybody's in that game. Some companies give a lot more width and breadth to opinion and to conversation and to both sides of the issue. Some are completely don't give any at all. So you have to understand what you're getting and where it's coming from. And that's the first way that we find ourselves to get basically free. Now, I will tell you a second thing. There's still nothing as powerful as people talking to people. Nothing. Because what we've seen is the incredible rise of social media. And you and I could spend days trying to talk about this because I know how you feel about this, and it bugs the living daylights out of me, what social media is doing to us as people. But I can't get past the fact the reason it's so powerful is because one person talking to another person is still the most powerful way to communicate. And in a way, that's kind of what social media does.
If they're communicating and not projecting and arguing. I think of, you like to think about things in terms of movies. Great scene in Good Will Hunting which when you think of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, their most profound work was their first and will never be outdone. But the scene with Robin Williams and then, just Matt Damon's face, his eyes, he's staring at the bookshelf and he kind of gives a exasperated, pathetic, kind of a condemning laugh. And there's Robin Williams saying, "What are you laughing about?" He just looks at him, all these books, and they're all the wrong ones. Which, just stopped me dead in my tracks because, one of the things I have often felt I was battling is we have more information than ever. I mean, I remember the Funkin' Wagnalls guy coming to my house on West Park Street in Arlington Heights, and we bought Funkin' Wagnalls.
Yeah.
And to think that these 20 or so leather volumes had everything. If
I read the whole thing, I'd be the smartest guy in the world. Right?
And now it's all on the phone. We're surrounded by information, and I'm like Matt Damon's character. But we have so much information and so little understanding, and usually it's all the wrong information. We're watching all and trusting all the wrong things, and that to me is the tragedy. Social media, by and large, creates. I'm watching. Go back. I know you're banning cats, but I'm watching these two cats focused on what matters in life. They're just hugging each other, resting, and no phones. You know what I mean? No distractions.
Yeah.
Just focused on what really matters in life: love, relationship, and rest and peace. But we can learn from them. I guess it's the combination too, David, of all of the above, right? It's
and
everywhere you look it's just so overwhelming.
I wish that there was like, here, take this pill and call us in the morning. You're going to be better.
Well, it might be a blue pill.
Yeah. Well, the first, well said. The first
Matrix,
is,
by the way, in case somebody's thinking of another pill from.
Yeah, Matrix for sure. The reality is that knowing what you're up against is the first thing. You got to know what you're up against. You got to be able to call your enemy out by name, and it's the corporate media. It is the corporate media. And so finding a way to extract yourself from that set of silos and then say, okay, now where can I go to get good information? It isn't easy. I hope that what we're doing here helps as a part of a package that people cobble together among trusted friends and allies and teachers and educators and good books, where you can kind of get your worldview back into a place of understanding as opposed to being manipulated.
But if nothing else, I hope what people could begin to see, you think you're watching and you think you're going to a lot of different sources. It's really the same four over and over again.
Yeah.
Controlling every thought, narrative. You talk about that original Thanksgiving table. I never thought I would live, and it's a short period of time, 50 years. And I live in a world where every moment is a battle, and a battle we are collectively losing, but a battle for reality, let alone trust, let alone truth. And then if we could ever overcome that, then can we sit at a table and come and reason. But I think those three have to be won first.
This conversation isn't over yet, so come on back next time and pull up a chair at 1850 Main Street. To help spread the word, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. We'll see you soon.